You're lucky to be here. When I heard those 5 words from Kyle Mason's mouth, my new boss, 35 years old, dripping with privilege and arrogance, I understood. He didn't respect me, my work, or the 9 years I'd bled for this position. Why was a senior client liaison like me being treated like an unpaid intern? And why didn't he know? I was the one holding the keys to the company's biggest VIP client list. My name is Madeline Roy. And at 39, I'd spent nearly a decade building something most people in B2B marketing only dream about. Genuine relationships with 78 VIP clients who controlled billions in industrial contracts. I wasn't flashy. You wouldn't find me posting thought leadership pieces on LinkedIn or speaking at conferences about synergistic solutions. While my colleagues chased visibility, I chased results. My superpower was simple. I kept clients happy, and more importantly, I kept them coming back. Evermark Strategies wasn't a household name, but in the world of industrial B2B marketing, we were royalty. We handled campaigns for manufacturing giants, logistics conglomerates, and tech suppliers that most people never heard of, but whose products touched every aspect of modern life. I'd been there since the early days, when our office was a converted warehouse and our client list fit on a single page. Back then, respect was earned through results. My old boss, Patricia Henley, understood that. She'd hired me straight out of my disastrous stint at a flashy ad agency where I'd learned that sparkle without substance was worthless. Pat saw something in me that others missed. I genuinely cared about understanding what clients needed, not just what they said they wanted. Over 9 years, I'd built relationships with procurement directors, supply chain VPs, and operations executives across the country. These weren't just names in a database. I knew their kids' names, their golf handicaps, their preferred bourbon brands. When Tom Garrett's daughter got into MIT, I was the first one he called after his wife. When Sandra Liu needed a vendor recommendation for her sister's startup, she texted me at midnight knowing I'd respond. The company had grown around these relationships. We went from 5 employees to 50. From that warehouse to a gleaming office in the financial district. But through every transition, every restructuring, every pivot, I remained the constant. The keeper of relationships, the one who remembered that behind every RFP was a human being trying to solve a problem. I worked in the shadows by choice. While account executives preened in meetings, I was having coffee with clients, learning about their pain points before they became problems. While creative directors won awards, I was smoothing over production delays with personal phone calls. I didn't need recognition, I needed results. The VIP list was my creation. Though you'd never find my name on it officially, it started as a simple spreadsheet. Contacts I'd cultivated who consistently brought in 7-figure contracts. Over time, it evolved into a complex ecosystem of interconnected relationships, preferences, and histories that existed partly in our CRM but mostly in my head and my personal files. Patricia understood the value of this. She never asked me to document every detail in the company system because she knew that relationships couldn't be reduced to data points. Trust couldn't be transferred via spreadsheet. She protected me from the politics. Let me work my way, and the results spoke for themselves. Our retention rate for VIP clients was 94%, unheard of in our industry. Then Patricia announced her retirement, and everything changed. The board brought in fresh blood, someone who could take us to the next level. Someone who understood modern marketing dynamics and digital transformation. Someone who'd never spent a day building an actual client relationship, but had an MBA from Wharton and a trail of impressive-sounding titles from consulting firms. Someone named Kyle Mason. Kyle Mason arrived like a hurricane in an Armani suit, 35 years old, with perfectly styled hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He came from Meridian Consulting, where he'd apparently revolutionized client engagement strategies, whatever that meant. His first all-hands meeting set the tone. PowerPoints full of buzzwords, reorganization charts that made no sense, and not a single mention of our actual clients. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Change was inevitable, and maybe fresh perspectives could help. But it became clear within weeks that Kyle viewed everything before his arrival as outdated, especially the people who'd built it. He started with listening tours, 30-minute slots where employees could share their insights. When my turn came, I prepared carefully. I brought data on our VIP retention rates, testimonials from long-term clients, and suggestions for enhancing our personal touch in an increasingly digital world. Kyle spent the entire time checking his phone. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "Interesting, but we need to think bigger. Your model doesn't scale." "It's not supposed to scale," I explained. "These relationships are holding us back," he interrupted. "We need automation, not coffee meetings, data analytics, not gut feelings." The real assault began in week 3. During a strategy session with the executive team, Kyle presented his vision for the new Evermark. He'd identified several redundancies and legacy positions that needed optimization. When he reached the slide about client services, my photo appeared under the heading, Restructuring Opportunities. "Madeline here represents our old model," he said, laser pointer circling my face like a target. "One person hoarding relationships instead of building scalable systems. It's a bottleneck and a risk." The room went silent. Several board members who'd known me for years shifted uncomfortably. But Kyle pressed on, outlining how my role would be transitioned to a team of junior associates armed with automation tools and scripts. I found my voice. "Those VIP clients generate 60% of our revenue. They work with us because they haven't been presented with better options." Kyle cut in, that cold smile spreading across his face. "Don't worry, Madeline. We'll find a place for you. Probably in training. You can teach the new hires about the old days." The humiliation burned, but I kept my composure. After the meeting, I asked for a private word, maybe one-on-one, without the performance aspect. We could find common ground. His office, Patricia's old office, had been completely transformed. Gone were the client photos and handwritten thank you notes. In their place, motivational posters and monitors displaying real-time metrics. He didn't invite me to sit. "Kyle," I began, "I understand you want to modernize, but these relationships I've built are a crutch," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "You've made yourself indispensable, which is bad business. What happens when you leave? Get sick? The company can't depend on one person's Rolodex. It's not just a Rolodex, it's trust built over." He finally looked up, and the contempt in his eyes stopped me cold. "Madeline, I'm trying to be patient here. You're clearly passionate, and that's sweet. But this is the real world. We need processes, not personalities." I straightened my spine. Those processes won't mean anything when Tom Garrett pulls his $20 million contract because some script-reading junior associate doesn't know his wife just got diagnosed with cancer and he needs flexibility on delivery schedules. Kyle's laugh was sharp, dismissive. He leaned back, studying me like I was a particularly amusing fossil. "You know what your problem is? You think you're irreplaceable. But here's the truth." He stood, walking around his desk to stand too close, his cologne overwhelming. His voice dropped to a condescending whisper. And then he said those 5 words that would seal his fate. "You're lucky to be here." The words hung in the air between us. I felt something inside me shift, harden, crystallize into cold determination. 9 years of dedication, dismissed in 5 words. All those late nights, urgent calls, saved contracts, and saved relationships, reduced to luck? "I see," I said quietly. "Thank you for clarifying." He'd already turned back to his laptop, dismissing me without another word. As I walked out, I heard him chuckle to himself, probably already forgetting our conversation. But I would never forget. Those 5 words would echo in my mind as I planned his downfall. He thought I was lucky to be here? He had no idea how unlucky he was that I'd heard them. The systematic destruction of my career began the next morning. Kyle CC'd the entire executive team on an email announcing the Client Relations Transformation Initiative. My name appeared repeatedly, always preceded by phrases like traditional approach and Legacy methods. He'd assigned me a new title, Transition Specialist, corporate speak for dead woman walking. The first public humiliation came during the quarterly client review. I'd always led these sessions, walking the team through relationship status, upcoming renewals, and growth opportunities. This time, Kyle interrupted 3 minutes into my presentation. "Let's skip the storytelling," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "Where are the metrics, the predictive models? This feels very anecdotal." "These aren't anecdotes," I replied steadily. "These are insights based on your personal feelings." He turned to address the room. "This is exactly why we need systematic change. We can't run a multi-million-dollar operation on Madeline's hunches." My hunches had saved 3 major accounts in the last quarter alone. But I saw the faces around the table, some sympathetic, others already calculating their positions in Kyle's new order. He assigned me a shadow, Jessica, fresh from Northwestern with a marketing degree and Kyle's personal recommendation. 23 years old, armed with theories and absolutely no real experience. My job was to train her to replace me. "Document everything," Kyle instructed during our kickoff meeting. "Every client preference, every contact detail, every little trick you use. Jessica needs to be able to replicate your entire process." Jessica at least had the grace to look uncomfortable, but she dutifully followed me around with her iPad, taking notes while I made calls to people I'd known for years. She'd interrupt conversations to ask about conversion metrics and engagement KPIs while I was trying to talk a client through a supply chain crisis. The worst part was watching her report back to Kyle. I'd see them in his glass office, Jessica showing him her notes while he nodded approvingly. Once, I caught him pointing at me through the glass, both of them laughing at something. My paranoia? Maybe. But the next day, I was removed from the Garrett Industries account, our second biggest client, one I'd personally brought in 5 years ago. "Tom specifically asked for me," I protested in Kyle's office. "Tom needs to learn to work with the team, not individuals." Kyle replied, "Besides, Jessica's got some fresh ideas about their digital integration. You're too close to see the opportunities." Tom Garrett called me that night, confused and irritated. Who the hell is Jessica? And why is she sending me proposals for solutions to problems I don't have? I couldn't tell him the truth, that I was being pushed out. Instead, I promised to look into it, knowing I'd have no power to fix anything. The pattern continued. Client dinners I'd attended for years. "We need to reduce entertainment expenses." The industry conference where I'd built half my network? Not in this year's budget for your level. Access to the premium CRM features I needed to manage complex accounts? Under review for optimization. But the killing blow came at the company retreat. Kyle had insisted on a team-building weekend at some resort in Wisconsin. During the Saturday evening reception, with clients and partners present, he decided to make an example of me. "I want to talk about evolution," he began his speech, champagne glass in hand. "About how companies must adapt or die. Some of us embrace change." He gestured to his cadre of new hires. "Others." His eyes found me in the crowd. "Others cling to the past like security blankets." The room tensed. Several clients looked confused, but Kyle was on a roll. "Take our client services. For too long, we've operated like a mom-and-pop shop, dependent on personal relationships instead of professional processes. Madeline here, where are you? Madeline, there she is. Madeline handles what I call the dinosaur accounts. Old-school clients who haven't realized it's 2025. But don't worry." He raised his glass mockingly. "We're bringing her into the modern age. Aren't we, Madeline? The rest of us," he continued, turning away from my burning face, "are chasing the future, building scalable, data-driven relationships that don't depend on who you grab coffee with." I stood there, surrounded by people I'd worked with for years. Some clients I'd considered friends, all watching Kyle publicly mark me as obsolete. The whispers started before he even finished. I saw Sandra Liu, whose business I'd saved during COVID, exchange glances with her colleague. Tom Garrett looked furious. but not at Kyle, at me, for letting this happen. I left the reception early, but not before overhearing Kyle with a group of board members. She's a liability risk. All those relationships in her head instead of in our systems? What if she gets hit by a bus? Or worse? He laughed. What if a competitor poaches her? The final insult came Monday morning, an email requiring me to complete a knowledge transfer plan within 7 days. Every contact, every note, every shred of relationship data I'd accumulated was to be uploaded to a shared drive. My personal client files, my carefully maintained histories, my private cell phone contacts, everything. For business continuity, the email read, "Non-compliance will result in immediate termination without severance. 7 days to hand over 9 years of my life. 7 days to give Kyle the very relationships he'd mocked me for maintaining. 7 days to sign my own professional death warrant." I smiled at my computer screen. 7 days would be more than enough. That night, I sat in my home office with a glass of wine and 9 years of carefully organized data. The smart thing would be to comply, transfer everything, take my severance, and move on. The professional thing, the safe thing. But I kept hearing those 5 words. You're lucky to be here. Lucky? I'd built this client base from nothing. I'd saved Kyle's predecessor's job twice by personally intervening when major accounts threatened to walk. I'd turned Evermark from a nobody into a trusted partner for companies that moved billions in goods annually. And this arrogant child thought I was lucky? I opened my laptop and began to work. Not on the knowledge transfer Kyle demanded, but on something else entirely. First, I downloaded everything, but not to the company's shared drive. To my personal encrypted cloud storage, every contact, every note, every carefully maintained preference file. Then I got creative. The CRM system we used had an interesting quirk I'd discovered years ago. When you deleted contacts, they went into a 30-day recovery bin, unless you knew the specific sequence to bypass it. Patricia had shown me this during a system cleanup. Just be careful, she'd warned. This is permanent. I spent the week appearing to comply. I showed up early, stayed late, and made a show of working on the transfer. Jessica shadowed me constantly, taking notes as I explained surface-level processes. I gave her just enough to seem cooperative, basic contact information, general preferences, obvious patterns, the kind of information anyone could gather from LinkedIn and Google. But the real work happened after hours. Each night, I crafted personal messages to my top 78 VIP clients, not from my company email, from my personal account I'd used for years to send birthday wishes and condolences, the one they'd saved in their phones as Madeline, not work. The messages were simple, professional. After 9 wonderful years at Evermark, I'm transitioning to new opportunities. I wanted to personally thank you for your trust and partnership. While I'm uncertain of my next steps, I'll be reachable at this email. Your success has always been my priority, and that won't change regardless of where I land. I'll be in touch once I'm settled. Madeline. The responses poured in immediately. Tom Garrett called within an hour. What do you mean, transitioning? Did that punk push you out? Sandra Lou texted, whatever you need, I've got your back. By Wednesday, I had standing offers from 3 clients to consult for them directly. But I wasn't done. I carefully documented every mistake Kyle had made with clients, and there were many. The proposal he'd sent to Meridian Industries using their competitors' pricing. The meeting he'd missed with Hartwell Group because he was golfing with board members. The time he'd called Robert Stevens, Richard, for an entire presentation. I compiled it all into a neat file labeled Transition Risks and saved it separately. Thursday night. I made my final preparations. I updated all client records in the CRM with basic information, enough to avoid suspicion, not enough to be useful. Then I created a series of nested folders in the shared drive, professionally labeled and seemingly complete. Anyone doing a cursory check would see hundreds of files, all properly named and categorized. They wouldn't realize until they opened them that the contact details were all publicly available information, that the relationship notes were generic observations anyone could make, that the real intelligence, the daughter at MIT, the bourbon preferences, the anniversary of a spouse's death when no meetings should be scheduled, none of that made it in. Friday morning, I arrived at the office for the last time. My desk was clean, my files boxed. Jessica waited nervously with her iPad, ready for final instructions. "It's all in the shared drive," I told her pleasantly. "Everything Kyle asked for." She looked relieved. "He'll be so pleased. He was worried you might, well, make things difficult." I smiled. "Why would I do that? I'm lucky to be here, remember?" At 11:47 a.m., I executed my final task. I logged into the CRM with my administrator credentials, access I'd had since the early days that IT never thought to revoke. I navigated to the contact management system, selected the carefully tagged group labeled Premier Tier VIP, all 78 of them, and initiated the permanent delete sequence. 3 confirmations, 3 chances to reconsider. 3 times I clicked yes. Then I opened my email and typed 7 words to Kyle, CCing the entire executive team. "You're lucky I didn't do worse." I didn't wait for a response. I packed my single box of personal items, left my access badge on Jessica's desk, and walked out of Evermark Strategies forever. My phone started ringing before I reached my car. Kyle's number. I let it go to voicemail. The weekend was quiet. I turned off my phone, poured a good bourbon, and started researching small consultancies in other cities, places that understood the value of relationships, places run by people who'd built something real. By Sunday night, I'd settled on Hawthorne Creek, a small town with a growing business district and a boutique consultancy that had already reached out through a mutual connection. They needed someone who understood B2B relationships, someone who could build trust, someone who knew that luck had nothing to do with it. Monday morning arrived like a thunderclap at Evermark Strategies. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard about it later from multiple sources, former colleagues who couldn't resist sharing the beautiful chaos that unfolded. It started with Jessica's panicked call to Kyle at 7:43 a.m. She'd arrived early to prepare for the week's client meetings, only to find the CRM dashboard completely empty of VIP contacts. Not just missing information, the contacts themselves were gone, vanished, as if they'd never existed. Kyle stormed in by AT, his usual swagger replaced by barely controlled panic. He demanded IT run recovery protocols, convinced it was a system error. But the logs were clear. User M. Roy had executed a permanent deletion sequence at 11:47 a.m. Friday. No recovery possible. "Check the shared drive," he barked at Jessica. "Everything should be there." Jessica opened folder after folder, her face growing paler with each click. Yes, there were files. Hundreds of them. Contact names, company addresses, general email domains. But nothing useful. Nothing that couldn't be found with a basic Google search. No direct lines, no cell numbers, no personal emails, no relationship history, no preferences, no insights. Just empty shells of data. Professionally organized and utterly worthless. The 9:00 a.m. Monday call with Hartwell Group was the first casualty. Kyle confidently dialed the main company number from the shared drive, only to be transferred 3 times before reaching a confused receptionist who'd never heard of their supposed meeting. The direct line to their VP of operations? Gone. The cell number for emergency logistics issues? Vanished. By 10 a.m., the scope of the disaster was becoming clear. 17 client meetings scheduled for the week, and they couldn't reach a single decision-maker directly. The generic contact me emails bounced back auto-responses. The main switchboard numbers led to phone trees and junior staff who didn't know Evermark from Adam. Then the calls started coming in, but not to Kyle. Tom Garrett reached out to the main office line, furious. "Where the hell is Madeline? I've been trying to discuss our Q2 expansion, and some kid named Jessica sent me a template proposal that has nothing to do with what we discussed. And why is Kyle Mason calling my headquarters asking for my contact information? Is this a joke?" Sandra Liu was less polite. Her email, CC to the entire board, was scathing. I'm attempting to understand why, after 5 years of seamless partnership, I'm suddenly receiving cold calls from your team asking for my basic contact details. Has Evermark suffered some kind of catastrophic data loss? Or have you simply fired the only person who actually understood our business? Kyle tried damage control. He personally called the main numbers, introduced himself as the new head of client relations, and attempted to schedule meetings. The responses were brutal. We work with Madeline, was the common refrain. If she's no longer there, we'll need to reassess our partnership. The board meeting at 2 p.m. was, according to my former colleague Rachel, like watching a man drown in his own PowerPoint. Kyle tried to spin it as a minor transition hiccup, but the numbers were undeniable. They couldn't contact 78 VIP clients who represented 60% of revenue. The scalable systems he'd promised were useless without the basic ability to reach decision makers. You told us Madeline was a bottleneck, board member Harrison Wright said coldly. It seems she was actually the whole damn pipeline. The IT investigation that afternoon revealed the elegant simplicity of what I'd done. No hacking, no sabotage, no violation of company policy. I'd used legitimate access to delete contacts from the CRM, something my administrator role allowed. The shared drive contained exactly what was requested: client information. The fact that it was useless information? Well, Kyle should have been more specific. But the truly damning discovery came from the logs. It found records of Kyle's mistakes I'd carefully documented: the missed meetings, the botched proposals, the insults to longtime clients. Someone, definitely not me, had accidentally CC'd these files to several board members while attempting to comply with the knowledge transfer request. Tuesday brought more chaos. Robert Stevens from Meridian Industries called the CEO directly. I don't know what's happening over there, but if you've let Madeline go, you've lost our business. She's the only one who understood our supply chain complexity. That Mason fellow sent us a proposal with our competitor's pricing structure. Is he incompetent or just insulting us on purpose? By Wednesday, the board had seen enough. 43% of VIP clients had indicated they were reconsidering their contracts. The phones rang constantly with confused clients unable to reach their contacts. Jessica had a nervous breakdown trying to cold call Fortune 500 executives. And Kyle's attempts to blame me for sabotage fell flat when legal reviewed my actions and found nothing actionable. She gave us exactly what we asked for. The head of legal told the board. We demanded she transfer knowledge to a shared system. She did. We never specified that she couldn't delete redundant data from the CRM afterward. Her administrator access was never revoked. Technically, she was cleaning up the system to avoid duplication. Thursday morning, Kyle Mason was placed on administrative leave pending a full review. The official reason was failure to ensure business continuity during a critical transition. The unofficial reason, whispered in the halls, was that he'd lost the company millions in potential revenue in less than a week. But I wasn't thinking about Kyle anymore. I was already in Hawthorne Creek, meeting with the partners at Meridian Consultancy, a name coincidentally similar to one of my former clients. They'd received a glowing recommendation from someone who'd heard about my transition and wanted to ensure I landed somewhere that valued relationship building. We believe in the personal touch here, the senior partner said, shaking my hand. No automation replacing human connection. No systems over relationships, just good old-fashioned trust and service. Sounds perfect, I replied, thinking of the 22 VIP clients who'd already reached out to my personal email, asking about my new venture. When do I start? Friday marked 1 week since I'd left Evermark. I didn't gloat. I didn't post about it on LinkedIn. I didn't respond to the numerous interview requests from industry publications curious about the Evermark exodus. As they dubbed the mass client departures, I simply got to work. Building something new with the relationships I'd earned over 9 years. Not through luck, but through respect, dedication, and the understanding that in business, as in life, you get back what you give. Kyle Mason learned that lesson the hard way. He thought I was lucky to be there. Turns out, they were lucky to have me. The collapse happened faster than anyone predicted. By Monday of week 2, Evermark's emergency board meeting had made its decision. Kyle Mason was terminated effective immediately. No severance package, no graceful exit, no LinkedIn post about pursuing new opportunities. Just a security escort and a cardboard box. I heard about it through Tom Garrett, who called me that evening at my new apartment in Hawthorne Creek. "Thought you'd want to know," he said, barely suppressing his satisfaction. "Your old boss is gone. Lasted exactly 10 days after you left. Must be some kind of record." "I'm sorry to hear that," I lied smoothly, looking out at my new view of the creek that gave the town its name. "I hope Evermark finds stability." Tom laughed. "Stability? Madeline, they're hemorrhaging clients. Stevens pulled out yesterday. Hartwell's contract is under review. Even small accounts are nervous. Word is they're begging Patricia to come out of retirement for damage control." I made appropriate sympathetic noises, but my mind was already elsewhere. 22 of my former VIP clients had confirmed they wanted to work with me at Meridian Consultancy. Another 15 were waiting to see where I landed before making decisions. The others would likely stay with Evermark. I held no grudges against the company itself, just the man who'd tried to diminish 9 years of relationship building to luck. The real vindication came Wednesday afternoon. A FedEx package arrived at my new office, a small but elegant space with exposed brick and large windows. Inside was a handwritten note from Harrison Wright, the board member who'd questioned Kyle during that fatal meeting. "Ms. Roy," it read, "the board of Evermark Strategies would like to extend our sincerest apologies for the recent treatment you received. We recognize now the invaluable role you played in our success. While we understand you've moved on, we want you to know that Kyle Mason's approach did not reflect our values or appreciation for dedicated professionals like yourself. We wish you every success in your future endeavors. P.S. Legal has confirmed no non-compete violations given the circumstances of your departure. Build freely." Build freely. I smiled at those words. That's exactly what I intended to do. 3 weeks into my new role, I was thriving. Meridian Consultancy gave me something I'd never had at Evermark: genuine respect and autonomy. They understood that my relationships were my craft, my art form. No one asked me to document every conversation or justify every coffee meeting. They simply watched the contracts roll in and let me work. Jessica reached out once, a nervous LinkedIn message asking for advice. She'd been laid off in the post-Kyle restructuring, collateral damage in a war she never understood. I felt sorry for her, a bright young woman who'd been used as a weapon against experience. I gave her some guidance, connected her with a company that would actually train her properly. She thanked me profusely, admitting she'd learned more about how not to do business than how to do it during her brief time at Evermark. The industry newsletters picked up the story eventually. The Great Evermark Exodus became a cautionary tale told at business schools and leadership seminars. How one executive's arrogance and misunderstanding of relationship capital had cost a company nearly half its revenue in less than a month. Kyle Mason's name became shorthand for catastrophic leadership failure, though he tried to spin it on his LinkedIn as a learning experience in change management. But I avoided all of it: the interviews, the schadenfreude, the industry gossip. I had work to do. Real work. The kind where you know your client's daughter just defended her thesis at MIT and send a congratulations note. Where you remember that Robert Stevens, never Richard, prefers morning meetings because he coaches his son's basketball team in the evenings. Where you understand that business isn't just B2B, it's human to human. 6 months later, Meridian Consultancy had grown by 300%. We'd added 2 new partners and a team of relationship managers I personally trained. My methods weren't secret, they were simple. Listen more than you talk. Remember what matters to people. Show up consistently. Treat every interaction as an opportunity to build trust, not just close a deal. Patricia Henley called me one evening, her voice warm with amusement. "I heard you caused quite a stir on your way out." "I simply complied with their requests," I said innocently. "Transferred all the knowledge they asked for." She laughed. a rich sound that reminded me why I'd loved working for her. Beautifully done, though I do feel bad for whoever's trying to rebuild that database. They'll figure it out, I said. Or they won't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. No, she agreed. You've got bigger things to focus on. I heard Meridian just landed the Patterson Group contract. That's a $10 million account. 12 million, I corrected. And yes, we did. Turns out they value working with people who remember their names. A year after leaving Evermark, I received one final communication about my former employer. A holiday card from the new CEO, someone brought in to salvage what remained of the company. Inside was a brief note. Ms. Roy, I've spent months trying to understand how one person's departure could cause such devastating impact. Now I understand it wasn't about one person leaving. It was about failing to value what that person brought. Best wishes for continued success. I kept the card as a reminder. Not of revenge or vindication, but of a simple truth I'd learned over 9 years and proven in just 7 days. Relationships aren't built on luck. They're built on respect, consistency, and the understanding that behind every contract is a human connection. Kyle Mason thought I was lucky to be there. He was wrong. They were lucky I stayed as long as I did. And when that luck ran out, when someone confused dedication with dispensability, I didn't need to destroy anything. I simply took with me what was always mine, the trust and relationships I'd earned, one conversation at a time. The last I heard, Kyle was working for a startup that promised to revolutionize relationship management through AI automation. I wished him luck. He was going to need it. As for me, I was too busy building something real to pay attention. 22 clients had become 40. 40 had become 60. Each one a relationship, not just a revenue stream. Each one proof that in a world of automation and algorithms, the most powerful technology is still a human being who gives a damn. I wasn't lucky to be anywhere. I was exactly where I'd earned the right to be. 5 years have passed since I walked out of Evermark Strategies with nothing but a cardboard box and the knowledge that respect, once lost, can never be demanded back, only earned elsewhere. Meridian Consultancy is no longer a small boutique firm. We've grown thoughtfully, carefully, the way real relationships grow. We have offices in 3 cities now, each one maintaining that same philosophy. People before processes, trust before technology. I'm a senior partner now, mentoring a new generation of relationship managers who understand that behind every RFP is a human being, with concerns, dreams, and kids who play basketball on Tuesday evenings. I still use my old methods. My clients still have my personal cell. I still remember birthdays, anniversaries, and the names of spouses and children. The difference is that now, no one questions these practices. They're built into our culture, our training, our very identity as a firm. Tom Garrett retired last year. At his farewell dinner, he pulled me aside with tears in his eyes. You know what I'm going to miss most? These conversations. 20 years of business, and you're the only vendor who became a friend. I wasn't a vendor anymore. Meridian had helped transition his company through 3 acquisitions. But I understood what he meant. We'd built something that transcended contracts and quarterly reviews. Evermark Strategies still exists, though it's a shadow of its former self. They were acquired by a larger firm 2 years ago, absorbed and rebranded into obscurity. I heard they spent over $1 million trying to rebuild their client database, hiring consultants and data recovery specialists. But you can't recover trust from a hard drive. You can't restore relationships from backup files. Kyle Mason's story became a Harvard Business School case study. The 90-day collapse, a study in leadership failure. I'm told professors use it to teach the importance of institutional knowledge and the dangers of dismissing relationship capital. He tried to sue the school to remove his name, but apparently, academic freedom won out. His LinkedIn now lists him as a transformation consultant, which seems fitting. He certainly transformed Evermark, just not in the way he intended. Jessica, that nervous young woman with the iPad, reached out last month. She's a director now at a nonprofit, building community partnerships. You taught me something crucial, she wrote. that real business isn't about metrics or automation. It's about showing up for people. She's doing well, having learned early what some executives never grasp. Patricia Henley and I have lunch quarterly. She never went back to Evermark, despite their pleas. Instead, she serves on Meridian's advisory board, her wisdom helping guide our expansion. You know what I love most about your success? She told me recently. You never gloated. You just built something better. She was right. I never posted about Evermark's collapse on social media. Never gave those interviews to business journals hungry for drama. Never wrote the tell-all article about toxic leadership and sweet revenge. I was too busy doing the work, real work, the kind that builds lasting value. But sometimes, late in the evening when I'm reviewing client files in my office overlooking Hawthorne Creek, I think about those 5 words. You're lucky to be here. They still make me smile, not with bitterness, but with genuine amusement. Kyle thought luck was about being allowed to exist in his presence. He never understood that real luck is finding people who value what you bring to the table. My phone buzzes. It's a text from Sandra Liu, now CEO of her own company. Dinner Thursday, want to discuss that partnership we talked about? Also, Amy got into Stanford. Thanks for writing that recommendation. I smile and text back my confirmation. Another relationship, another connection. Another reminder that business is personal, whether we admit it or not. The industry has changed in 5 years. AI and automation have their place, certainly. But the companies thriving are the ones that understand technology should enhance human connections, not replace them. The ones that realize a CRM system is only as valuable as the relationships it represents. The ones that know you can't automate trust. I'm 54 now, with silver threading through my hair and laugh lines earned from 1,000 client dinners. Young relationship managers seek me out at conferences, hungry for the secret to building lasting partnerships. I tell them what I learned the hard way. There is no secret. Show up, listen. Remember what matters. Treat people like people, not data points in a system. And never, ever let anyone convince you that you're lucky to be somewhere that doesn't value you. You're not lucky. You're choosing to stay. And when that choice no longer serves you, when someone mistakes your dedication for dispensability, remember that the relationships you've built with integrity belong to you, not to any company or system. I learned that lesson when I deleted 78 VIP contacts from a CRM system and walked away with something far more valuable, the knowledge that I'd built something real, something that couldn't be reduced to entries in a database or replicated by someone with an iPad and a script. Kyle Mason thought I needed Evermark. He thought I was lucky to be there, fortunate to exist in his new world order. He was catastrophically wrong. They needed me. They needed what I represented, the human element that turns business from transactional to transformational. But I don't think about Kyle much anymore. I'm too busy building the future, one relationship at a time. Each client meeting, each phone call, each remembered birthday is a small rebellion against the idea that business can be fully automated, that relationships can be systematized, that human connections can be made obsolete. I wasn't lucky to be at Evermark, but I'm exactly where I need to be now, in a place that understands the simple truth Kyle never grasped. In a world of artificial intelligence and digital transformation, the most powerful competitive advantage is still a human being who gives a damn about other human beings. And that's not luck. That's a choice. One I make every single day. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you listening from? Please share in the comments below so we can connect with fellow listeners from around the world. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about workplace respect and knowing your worth. Have you ever had a boss who didn't value your contributions? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments.